You can hear me. If you can't, please let us know. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sunset Safari. It is fantastic to have you on board with us. Now, we have a very, very exciting afternoon planned. We're heading out to look for shadow. Now, those of you who might have missed it at some point this morning, Brent was out and found Karula, tracked and found Karula, only to discover that she was right on the boundary of her territory, having a little bit of an argument with her daughter Shadow. Now, for those of us joining us for the first time, I am talking about two female leopards who are dominant in this area. And they had a little bit of a growl at each other. It wasn't anything too serious. Just a little bit of words between mother and daughter, daughter straying possibly onto mother's territory. And it resulted in Karula blowing spit bubbles, which I must say is the most undignified thing I have ever seen Karula do, and maybe not befitting of a leopard queen of her status, but there you go. I'm trying to get you a nice view of these zebra, but they keep moving. Here's one of them. I know that there's a baby somewhere in this herd because I've just seen their tracks moving through. There's a tiny, tiny little track. Somewhere in here, that baby is hiding. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, for the second time this afternoon, my name is Jamie. I have the fantastic Wiem on camera with me, who is desperately searching for our zebra, who are being hugely inconvenient and demonstrating that fantastic camouflage of theirs. There's a tail swishing. Now, it is blistering hot this afternoon. It's 33 degrees centigrade, which is 91 degrees Fahrenheit. At least that's what the official temperature is. It feels a little bit like it might be over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the sun, which is good for us, because it means that wherever Miss Shadow is, she is probably hiding in the shade. Ooh, it almost looks like there's a storm blowing in. Now, my first instinct in looking for her, having spoken to Brent, who was with her earlier this morning, my first instinct would be to go and check water, because apparently she looked not necessarily full, but she definitely looked like she had eaten. And I wondered whether we shouldn't go and double check the nearest water source. Unfortunately, the nearest water source would have been Red Dam, but Red Dam is completely and utterly dry. Go and check. There's also lots and lots of baby impala around, so you never know if she's stopped for a bite-sized snack along the way. It is very, very interesting to see that behavior from the two dominant females that we are perhaps the most familiar with out of our leopards. And I know many, many of our newer viewers have questioned what would happen if Shadow and Karula were to meet up. And today provided us with quite a useful answer and quite a useful explanation. It also just goes to show that our guessing as to where exactly their territorial boundary was exactly spot on. Is Impala Road on Djuma. It seems as though Shadow lost that particular argument because she was on her way back towards Arathusa. I know that Brent's plan was to head across to where Karula was last spotted. So let's head across to Brent so he can say hello to you quickly, and you'll be back with me very shortly.
Welcome on the Sunset Safari. My name is Brent Smith. I have Jean-Andre Herding on the camera with me, and we have a special guest on the vehicle this evening by the name of Tara Dales, who's joining us for a Sunset Safari. And we're in the last position of Karula. She was sleeping on this termite mound just behind me, and we can't see where her tracks have gone. She hasn't gone across the road, so I'm going to jump off and use Shank's pony to check this area in front of us. Hopefully she hasn't moved too far. She's either sleeping up in a marula tree or in a deep body of shade. But while we check this area for the Queen of Djuma, let's go back to Jamie, and I'm sure she'll keep you entertained.
And after that brief hello, I'm sure that Brent is very keen to go wandering through the bush. I would also like to go tracking, but I have to have tracks first before I can do that. There's lots and lots of baby impala tracks. Actually, there's some impala, speaking of impala tracks. I wonder if there's any new babies. Hello, ladies. Chatting about tracks and tracking. Diane, yes, they were zebra tracks. I was attempting to mime it. I don't think I did it very well, but I was trying to show you how ridiculously small that one little track was. So yes, it was the zebra with their baby. And that's the herd that I stopped at earlier that was being somewhat reticent about appearing on camera. Shame. And it doesn't look like these two have babies. That female lying down on the left.
Did you see the baby?
Oh, there's a baby. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Liam. Hello, baby. Cute. I didn't see the baby at all. Our cameramen are an incredibly important part of this team. His baby poking its head over the back there. Hello, guys. Shame. Very hot and very tired. I wonder, life must be a little bit tough for these little baby impala at this point. There's leopards stalking around. Oh, they are up. Just watch the little one wobble away. This one's probably about 2 or 3 days old, maybe even older at this point. Hello, baby. Amazing to watch them, even at this sort of age, how alert they are. And not only that, how incredibly stable they are on their legs. Look at that, legs almost up to mom's stomach. Because it's important to be able to keep up with her. Careful, little one. There's a leopard somewhere here. And at this time of year, it's actually quite unusual to see female leopards, although they are opportunists. But it's quite unusual to see them on big hills unless they manage to catch an impala ewe who is heavily pregnant. But for the most part, their diet is going to essentially consist of unaware and inexperienced impala lambs that are being caught out. It is essentially a bonanza time for things like leopards and wild dogs. It really does look like there's a storm building. What a surprise. Didn't expect that at all. Amazing message from Dawn in California, who has loved the learning that we have offered to her, as well as getting her father, who is much older, into learning and watching these incredible safaris. And Dawn wanted to know, sorry Dawn, I've had a sudden moment of distraction because I realized this is one of Shadow's favorite areas. Dawn wants to know where we live when we are off duty. And the answer is generally most guides will move about or have homes in the area close to where they've chosen to work. I personally don't have a home necessarily that I go to, except when I head back to my parents in Johannesburg. And I guess I would still call that home as well. It largely depends on where you're from. But for the most part, a lot of us are from the surrounding areas, or at least within the country. And that's where we head back to when we're on leave. And that generally only happens sort of once every 6 weeks, possibly even longer. I was chatting a little bit about that particular approach to leave cycles this morning, and we were talking about the fact that it's the kind of job that is incredibly intense in its own way, because you work pretty much 7 days a week, all day, for the 6 weeks that you are on duty, and it's always useful to have a place that you can leave and go to, even if you still stay in a reserve, to just be out of that particular work situation. That being said, I think it's a fantastic environment in which to work. You live and work, and usually almost always socialize with the people that you are working with and from day to day. And it means that everybody knows each other incredibly well, and it's something that I've really enjoyed with this particular Big Cat Week, is to get to know everybody within the WildEarth team and really work really closely with them. And it's something that has brought the best out of all of us. I wonder if Shadow's hiding somewhere in the shade here. As we continue on our tracking adventure, I think that Brent has an update from his particular tracking adventure. So let's head across and have a look at what he's found.
So we've just come down to the edge of this little creek bed or drainage line. And leopards quite often will move here during the heat of the day. Nice and cool. Also, Karula has quite a well-known habit of sleeping in marula trees when it's hot. So we're checking all the marula trees around. Jandre, that is a knobthorn, not a marula tree.
It's a pretty frame.
There we go. It's a pretty frame. Jandre is worried about your visual experience. I'm worried about finding the leopard. So we're checking every little bit of shade. I have found her sleeping in trees in this area before. And so every little bit. So we have a question from one of the most beautiful cities. Whoops. Nearly Thorns and the cameraman, and Tara, in the USA, San Diego. And Renee would like to know what is the reaction of an unhabituated leopard to a vehicle. Well, I worked in an area in Tanzania, Renee, where we took over from hunting concession and we converted it into a photographic concession. And in my 3 years there, we had quite a lot of leopard sightings. But most of them were not seen by the guests, only by myself and my tracker, who would go, leopard! And before we could even say the word leopard, the leopard was gone. So that is the general behavior of an unhabituated animal. It takes off like a foul smell, not to be seen for the next year because it's run all the way to Timbuktu. But one of the ways we habituate unhabituated animals, and this sounds quite crazy if you think about it, is the old BBC One radio station that is BBC World Service. It can be found all over Africa on a very old little radio, and it's generally not worth your while in those areas habituating males. You start with females. Their territories and home ranges are quite a bit smaller, and if you find cub tracks, you know she's going to be in an area for quite a while. And then if you track them on foot and you manage to find a kill or a den site where she's keeping cubs, you go take a vehicle like this and you park it about 50 to 100 meters away from the kill or from the den, and you put the BBC radio on and you leave it there. And what happens is the cubs actually become so used to the noise, they habituate the mother. So it's much easier to habituate a young animal than an adult. It's not impossible to habituate an adult, it's just much more difficult and takes a lot more time. But if you manage to habituate a cub, it habituates the adult at the same time. So that is probably the best way to do it. And very similar with lions, and in that area we had to habituate everything from scratch. The elephants, the buffalo, even the impala and the bushbuck. Although there was one habituated warthog who used to live at the end of the airstrip. Emily. Emily's 7 and from sunny Durban in South Africa. And Emily says her favorite animals are bush babies, zebra, giraffe, and cheetah. Will we see them on today's safari? I hope I will be able to show you them, Emily, but I can't guarantee. You never know what you can see in the bush. I think there's a possibility. I think Jamie's already shown you some zebra, but I did see some giraffe during the day near the quarantine clearings where we are going to check next in case the leopard we're trying to find has moved that way. So now this, if I was a leopard in this heat, this is the tree I would go to. It is a milkberry and it's really, really thick and will provide some nice shade. So we're going to move around, see if we can have a look in there. And Emily, well, with cheetah, you never know. Ooh, what was that? Thought I heard an alarm call. But I think it's just a whiteback shrike. White crown shrike, sorry, making a noise. Yep. Emily, today is probably one of the best chances we have at finding a cheetah. So there was a cheetah found in the area bordering us, and it was heading in a westerly direction, which means towards us. So what I'm going to do is once we finish checking around here, we get no luck with the Queen of Juma. She's not hiding in that lovely milkberry. We are going to, maybe she's hiding below the milkberry. We're going to go have a look to see if that cheetah made its way towards our boundary. So not hiding below or in the milkberry. We've had a look at most of the good marulas and other trees. Karula, the Queen of Juma, is a very sneaky cat. Definitely one of the hardest leopards I've tracked before. Because she's got a really big territory for a leopard in this part of the world, it makes her harder. And I still believe she can fly over roads. She can disappear. You're so certain you're going to find her after you found her in the morning again, in the next safari, and she just vanishes. The problem is if she hasn't come into this block that we're checking now, she's gone into a very big block where it's very difficult to move a vehicle through. And I think the best option would be to actually check around the western edge of quarantine a little bit later, or around the water holes at Gallagher or at Juma. So zoomies, beware, keep an eye out for the Queen on the Juma waterhole cam as the sun gets a little bit lower. So we spend an incredible amount of time with these animals, and Bruce from Pennsylvania is wondering, do we ever get emotionally attached? Bruce, it's very difficult not to. I definitely do have favorites. As to say, I don't think I get, myself personally, I don't get too emotionally attached. I grew up with a very scientific father, so you can't really give animals human emotions. They don't think or feel the same way we do. I mean, for example, a female leopard can actually watch her cubs die. I've seen one and eat half her cub that was killed by a male, and then yet still spend a week and a half calling for the cub in the same area. So as difficult as it might be not to get attached, I mean, obviously it's sad when an animal dies, but at the same time it is nature at its most raw. We've got to remember that even though we might feel completely appalled or shocked or horrid by some of the behavior, it is nature doing what nature does best. I mean, for example, there was an incredible coalition of male lions that I spent a lot of time with a few years ago in the southern Sabi Sands called the Mapocho, and we watched the one male who was called Mr. T. The trackers where I used to work actually used to call him Satan after his particular... I'm going to try and get... This is going to be difficult. Andre is going to hate me. No, there's no chance. but it's actually a little spider that mimics an ant, so it can hunt ants without being caught. Strange enough, called a spider. I mean, an ant mimicking spider. As you can see, it's got a much elongated. It's very fast, and it even moves like an ant. It's got a much longer body than a normal spider, and I think I'm going to stop torturing my poor cameraman. But sorry about that. Back to the pogos, the lions, and I watched. Well, we used to call them, the trackers used to call Satan. He arrived where the oldest of them was mating with an Ottawa lioness, which is a pride to the southwest of us. And see, that's what I think Karula's after. I will finish the story, but there's an impala with a very young lamb. You see, Jean-Ray, you want to go forward a bit? Trying to see, she's quite far from the road. There's torture cameraman there. Abe. Name of James Henry, he's come to help us, and he's going for a walk looking for Karula. Wave, James, say hello. He's calling me on the radio, and let us find my correct radio. Standing by. Copy. We did do a drive down the drainage line. Her last position was probably about 150, 20 meters up the road from there. There's a branch in the road, and that'll show you where she was, lying up on the termite mound. I think there is a possibility she's gone into that block above you. As James says, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful drive. Hopefully James can find us the Queen of June. Those impalas escape. I'm pretty sure Karula is looking for. We're having a little bit of signal breakup, so let's go have a look what James does.
Certainly not the leopard that Brent expected to find, but certainly one of the cool cats of the crowd. I believe that James Henry made something of an appearance earlier. I'm afraid to, or sad to report, that so far there's no sign of Shadow, but that still gives us a bit of an idea as to where she might be hiding. There are lots and lots of baby impala wandering around. I've seen several different herds, which means there's a very, very strong chance or strong possibility that she's hiding somewhere with a bit of a snack for the afternoon. The question is just, where is she hiding? The interesting thing about Shadow, of course, which sometimes makes her quite tricky to find if she does have a kill, is that she doesn't really hoist her kills into trees. It's happened once or twice, but for the most part there's a noticeable difference between her approach and the other leopards of this area. She really tends to be quite lazy about where she puts her food. I don't know why. I don't know how that particular aspect of her personality has evolved. I think probably it's impossible for an animal to be lazy as a personality trait. They might be tired or hungry, but they're probably not, or full, which is usually as what we see them as. It's very impossible for an individual leopard to be lazy. I don't know what it is about her personality, and it's not as though Karula doesn't hoist her kills, so she didn't learn it from her mother. Just one of those strange little attributes. We've done a full circuit all the way around Red Dam. Red Dam is not a dam, it is no longer mud, it is simply dried, cracked earth. It's unlikely that she'd be seeking moisture there. I even had a long look at the pump house, because in my experience leopards really, really enjoy the shade of artificial brick or stone buildings. It's a good way to keep cool. one interesting aspect about being out here with these animals is you get to know them all individually, and of course we all care very deeply about their personal safety and the safety of their young ones. But Wolfkit, you were wondering, would we ever be allowed to take possession of orphaned cubs or pups or anything like that, and possibly even send them off to a rescue center? For the most part, no. It's unlikely. The reason behind that is there's generally a policy that is adopted that nature must take its course in whatever way, shape or form it does, unless that animal has been orphaned by human interference. So if it's been orphaned because the mother has been killed by, for example, another lion, or has died of some kind of disease, then generally what's the word I'm looking for? My brain won't work. The approach adopted would be to leave that cub to face its natural end. In certain very unusual circumstances, if it is a rare animal, something endangered, like for example a cheetah or a wild dog, there is a chance that there might be a degree of human interference, just as a way of helping to balance out the species. But otherwise, generally nature is left to take its course, which is often hard to accept and understand, but it is, in my opinion, the absolute correct approach to looking after a wild area and allowing it to continue as it has for hundreds of years without any kind of human interference. The one exception that I will give is an animal or a bird that I saw this morning. Unfortunately, we couldn't catch them. They didn't sit still long enough to put on live, but they have been seen on live drives before, and that is the ground hornbill, which is a very big and very critically endangered bird. There's only about maybe 400 breeding females left in the world, about 1,500 individuals left in its entire species. And there are some incredible projects that, because essentially the ground hornbill lays 2 eggs, one that will survive and one that acts as an insurance policy. The one that acts as an insurance policy, once that second chick hatches after the first, because it doesn't get the same access to attention from the parents, it's outcompeted by its older sibling, it always dies. And for that reason, there are a couple of projects that are attempting to boost that hornbill project. And what they do is they wait until that second egg, or the first egg, has hatched, and before the second egg hatches, they go in and they take that egg away from the parents, and they raise it in a way that is not necessarily hand raising. They do it with puppets to make it look like ground hornbills, and then as soon as possible put them into enclosures with older hornbills, and eventually get to the point where they can release them into the wild. And that's an almost unprecedented level of interference out here, or unparalleled level of interference. For the most part, the baby animals are left to fend in this harsh world as they have been, as they always will be. Doesn't make it any easier. The one other exception, of course, would be any kind of rhino calf that has been orphaned due to external human influence, as happens fairly commonly around here. Come on, Shadow, you're hiding in the shadows. Now, theoretically, Shadow's name comes from the fact that she's quite shy. So keep your eyes peeled, because she might disappear off into a thicket somewhere. Be hiding down there. Now, we had Shadow and Karula right on the boundaries of each other's territory, growling and salivating in distress or whatever other emotion it might have been attributed to. But Michael, you were wondering if the males ever share territory, so male leopards. Males do not. In fact, they probably, in a situation like that, if it had been between 2 male leopards, there's a much higher chance that it would have come to a physical altercation. They might have fought each other. Although I know that Anderson and Tingana have been seen, so that's the two dominant males in this particular area. They've been seen doing the same thing, which is lying next to each other and growling. They have very independent territories. The only time that a leopard will share territories is with males and females. So males have a much, much larger territory that encompasses several territories of several different females. And he will mate with all of them. And if he encounters them, there's a chance that they might even if they're not mating, they might even share a kill, for example. And if he thinks that her cubs are his, then he might even be persuaded into allowing them to share the kill as well. That being said, it's very easy to think of territories, as we've seen with Shadow and Karula, easy to think of them as being jigsaw puzzles. So the one territory fits right next to the other. But of course, as with Shadow and Karula, that boundary is ever so slightly fluid, and you're almost inevitably going to get some degree of overlap. Animals don't have land surveyors that head out with plotting machines and go and draw maps of precise boundaries. They have to demarcate their own boundaries, and as soon as there's a nice downfall of rain, it washes away the original scent marking, and then they have to go back and repeat that whole process. It is fascinating to watch, though, the way that the animals interact, because Shadow and Karula are mother and daughter. So in theory, there's an interest within them to... Their genetic line is shared. That's the whole point of the mother-daughter relationship. And in leopards, they basically appropriate a part of their mother's territory. So Karula, as the fantastic mother that she is, the surrounding areas all around her territory are probably... Almost all of them are populated by her daughters. But they are by nature solitary, and they're not going to spend too much time with each other. I'm still double checking to see where Shadow's gone, but let's see what Brent has been up to.
So, as we drove up to the Juma waterhole, this young elephant bull has decided to remove Pete the pond hippo and the buffalo from the pan. And quite a boisterous young fellow. And we now have a standoff. I think the elephant's now not sure what to do now that he has removed the hippo from the pan. Chase buffalo instead, of course. So it looks like Pete's going to try access the pan from a different point. There's a wall of buffalo in front of him. Let's move forward a skosh. See all the scars all over him. He is faced with his second standoff in the last 5 minutes. So as you can see, Pete is full of holes. And the other night there was an epic battle we could hear between two hippos. And I'm sure one was him. And the fact that he's still in this little pan probably means he wasn't the victor, or was the victor. It could be that with this drought we're experiencing, there's so much stress. Just move forward. That head looks like he's gonna. So with this drought we're experiencing, the fights for water are going to get even more and more intense. Pete is now back in his spot. And the Ellie bull is enjoying a drink from the pipe. Oh, here we go again. Hello, boyo. Looks like he's full of mischief. Gonna go chase a buffalo. Because he can. So it looks like he's going to meander on. We'll do the same. We'll come back to these buffalo and hippo in a short while. We just need to make a quick delivery. We found a missing hat out in the bush, and it belongs to one of Juma's guests. So I'm just going to pop across and hand it to them quickly. I do that, I'm going to get Jean-Ray to point the camera back on the pond, although the Ellie looks like he's going to visit Kirsty and Nikki, who are in final control, or at least walk outside their window. I'm just going to get Jean-Ray to point the camera back towards the pan. There we go, and Peter's coming out on his own accord. We'll be back with him in a second, guys, don't worry. Okay, guys, good deed for the day done. Let's go back to see what the hippo is up to. And you can see there, Jean-Ray has found a buffalo bull who's missing half a horn. So we are with the fatties of the bush at the moment, the buffalo and the hippo. Well, let's go to Jamie, who's with the fashion model and a very tall creature we get out here in the bush.
Not the spotted cat that we were looking for, but another spotted creature, the tallest one we have out here. And Emily, who is 7 years old, Emily wanted to see a giraffe. Well, here you go, Emily. I'm afraid he's quite well hidden behind the trees, and I know that if I try and get any closer to him, he's going to run away. There's actually two of them here. I'm going to try and get you a nice spot to see him. So I can relocate around these trees. Oh, that might be as clear as we're going to get him for now. Here's the second one. Also looks like it might be a male. Well, Emily, giraffe are one of my favorite creatures to watch out here. They are fascinating to see. Not only are they, of course, incredibly tall. I'm going to try forward. They're incredibly tall, but they also have this wonderful defense mechanism. So their defensive approach is to try and stare at the threat, which means very often, they're going to go that way. That's hugely inconsiderate, mister. I know that there's an open area just on the other side of here, but they're not quite there yet. All right, Emily, give me a moment. I'm going to try and find you a nice position to see them. But yes, definitely one of the most interesting, and some of my experiences with them I have spent up to 20-30 minutes at a time being stared at by a group of giraffe. They seem to think it's incredibly intimidating, which I suppose in its own way, if you're a predator, it is. They're definitely not defenseless animals. Almost, Jigger, almost. Oh, done. The other amazing thing about giraffe is the size of their hearts. So 20 kilograms of heart muscle to pump all that blood up into their heads against gravity. He is really kindly moving to the open spot. We might get to see a nice visual, so stay tuned, Emily. Oops, mustn't forget to look for leopards at the same time. Oh, hello, Bubbas. Shit. Stop for a moment. That one is so tiny. That is a very, very new impala lamb. Yes, yes. Oh, cute. Whole little nursery of little impala lambs. Hello, guys. Do you know where the leopard is? Cute. All right, well, the giraffe is heading right into the open spot, so I'm going to rush to get a nice view of the giraffe for Emily. And then we can head back across and see what Peter the hippo is doing. But giraffe's going to pop out very quickly and very soon into that nice clearing I was talking about. Hello, giraffe. Both of them moving at a very steady, natural walking pace and still covering tremendous amounts of ground. Oh, that's probably going to be our best view. Ah, Emily, our giraffes don't want to be terribly cooperative today. There you go, they've stopped to have a snack, still in the bush, hiding away. Alrighty, whilst we wait for them to head out into an open patch, let's head back across to Brent and see what he's up to.
So guys, what we're trying to show you there is the first baby wildebeest of the season. So I feel quite special. We've got the first baby impala on camera, and now the first baby wildebeest on camera. Scott couldn't keep his scops out. But it looks like they might be coming for a drink. So we're just going to sit tight here, along with Peter and the buffaloes. Looks like she's stopped, a little bit nervous. So the rest of the herd's coming through. I can't see any more babies. It looks like only the one female's dropped. And there are also some zebra following here. So, oh, quickly, they're coming through now. I'm hoping they're going to come drink right next to us. We've been saying water is such a scarcity at the moment. Oh, look at that. All legs. I'm pretty sure I had a good look at this herd last night and drove past them this morning, and there were no babies. So it could have been born during the day today. So sometimes people get confused between wildebeest and buffalo, and here we have a perfect example of how to see the difference between them. And wildebeest is not actually that closely related to cows. They are an antelope. Oh, look at it go. Wobbly legs. Very, very new. You can see how close it's sticking to mom. Might choose to drink at the overflow, but I think the overflow is more mud than anything else. She might have to come up here, and the buffalo is defending the mud. Oh, Joel, that was so close. Look at that. Oh my goodness. See, that's how precious water is at the moment. That buffalo will defend its mud wallow. That's a very lucky little baby wildebeest. And there isn't much other water around. There's here Gallagher and Buffalo's Hook at the moment on Juma. Unfortunately, I don't think that buffalo hit the baby too hard. More of a fright than anything else. Now it's going to be very interesting to watch whether the need for water outweighs the threat of the buffalo. Even the guinea fowl's complaining about the buffalo. So what I think they're going to try to do is sneak in right next to us where the inflow to this pumped pan is. And you can see that baby's so new, it got very confused by the buffalo being chased, and obviously just saw a nice big dark shape near it and assumed it was a friend, not a foe. And as sad as a drought can be, you do get to witness some incredible spectacles because of the lack of water, and it forces all the animals into the same areas. Very, very new baby. Hours old. Still looks wet. Maybe even less than hours old. It's just repositioned slightly. I think the wildebeest don't want to take the risk with the hippo, and they're drinking to where the splash sort of overflow is. Looks like they're going to sneak up. I don't think there's much water in those little overflows. Lost sight of the little one there somewhere. You can see how pregnant the other females are. Big fat bellies. Baby's on the way. I'm very nervous of the buffalo and the hippo. There's the little guy. I mean, look, it's still wet. I would say that's been born in the last 45 minutes. See the umbilical cord still attached? Look how big that belly is. There's some wildebeest getting close to the buffalo down there again, John. Just in case that one buff looked like he might spin around at the wildy. It's one of last year's babies. Now it's decided not to tempt fate with the buffalo. It's having a good roll. Baby's on the far side of us now. So unstable on its feet. As I said, born in the last hour. You can still see it quite wet. And when it turns sideways, you'll see the umbilical, there we go, you can see the umbilical cord. Well, Gad has just said that's the first time she's ever screamed out loud at a buffalo on a drive, and she's glad the baby's okay. Now, I don't think he hit the baby too hard. Look, they're going to come. They're coming to where the water's flowing in, which is literally right next to where we are. And wildebeest is less than 6 feet from us now. Look at this, this is incredible. This wildebeest is so close to us. It's very seldom we're able to get this close to wildebeest. And that's that pressure for water. You know, those wildebeest noses are in the water 4 foot from us at the moment. Look at that. Well, there we go, close up of the wildebeest's nose. A little horn in the ribs. Time to go. Oh, look at that. It's just that buffalo is having a whale of a time in the mud there. That is the buffalo that didn't like the wildies coming to visit. I mean, that's the piece of mud he was defending. I mean, look at that. Almost zero water. And a lot of that overflows from peat getting in and out of the water and sending a splash, and the buffalo sending a splash down the hill. Oh, there we go. Really getting himself coated in that mud. Careful, wildies. It's a bit of a standoff. So, for those of you who might have missed that incredible behavior around the waterhole, we do have a replay of that buffalo attacking the baby wildebeest. So let's have a quick look at it while we go try and catch up with that baby again. Oh, Joel, that was so close. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. Wasn't that amazing? And with this really dry weather, we're going to see some incredible interactions around the water holes between the different animals. I mean, when we arrived, there was a young Ellie bull who was chasing the hippo and the buffalo. And then the wildebeest arrived. Tax let me know that they were heading this way. We're just going to zoom around and have a look at that baby again. Did look like the mom had a bit of a wound on her bottom. Didn't look chest though. Gracie, who's 8 years old, says that a buffalo needs a timeout. I agree with you, Gracie. Naughty buffalo. And you can see the way the mom's still nuzzling. There she is. Definitely, as I said, the last hour this baby was born. Still see how it's very wet and so unstable on its feet. Well, I learned an important lesson today. Look at that, how she's still preening and cleaning. Oh, look at that. It's gonna lie down. Mom still looks like she's licking a bit of the afterbirth off. And Zach in New York would like to know whether wildebeest are more closely related to buffalo or zebra. We can hear zebra calling. Zach, more closely related to buffalo. They're a ruminant in the same family, Bovidae, but probably out of all the animals we see, far more closely related to impala than buffalo themselves, even though they do look more like a buffalo. Oh, shame, it's tripping over everything. Saw this wildebeest herd come up to drink and that amazing interaction with the buffalo. And Rene is wondering, does a baby wildebeest need water? Rene, it will probably drink, but it doesn't need water just yet. It's far more reliant on mother's milk. And there they go. Oh, shame, still so clumsy. You can see it looks like a wound in her bum. Not sure what it's from. I'll try to have a look now. It could possibly be left over from the birth, but until I have it looked more like a wound to me when I first saw it. So let's move forward a skosh. For it to turn. You can see there's a bit of stiffness in that leg. No, it does look like a bit of afterbirth, not a wound. On her back left cheek. Oh, look at that! It's starting to get control of its feet. And we see it's got one calf, and Wolf is wondering, is that normal? Wolf, it is. Very seldom will they give birth to twins. It's not impossible, but improbable. So I'm pretty sure the wildies are going to spend some time grazing out here. And we are going to be lucky enough to see quite a few more baby wildies in the next week or so. But really exciting to be able to see the first one of the season. Attack with the baby impala. Once you see the first one, they sort of just start appearing everywhere. So look at it. I was going to say, let's leave, but then, oh, there we go. It looked like he was trying to have a bit of a drink. Patty Cook is wondering how long till wildebeest babies are weaned. They'll start feeding within a couple of weeks on grass, but properly weaned by sort of 3 months. It's a lot of stress on females to produce enough milk for the baby, so you'll find with a lot of the antelope species that the process is quite quick. And let's leave the wildy family and let's go ahead back out towards an area where Karula the queen might pop out, and we'll do one little look, and then I want to go have a look up towards Sydney's waterhole and that area, checking to see if that cheetah may possibly have crossed. What a stunning day out here in the African bush. So we're going to continue on, and we're going to jump across to Jamie, who's at the Arathusa water with a feathered friend to show you.
Shame, and after that, poor little wildebeest had a rather rough start to its new beginnings in the new world. We're just having a look at this family of Egyptian geese that we've been watching over the last few years. And it seems as though all 7 goslings from the beginning have survived. The parents have done exceptionally well, considering how much smaller the dam has got and the number of potential threats out here around the Arathusa Dam. And they've all pretty much reached the sub-adult stage and are out of the woods. The one that you're seeing in front of them, that's one of the parents. It's either the mother or the father. And then the guys like the one flapping at the back, those are the sub-adult chicks. They don't have quite the same level of striking markings. You don't see that white along their wings, and their eyes aren't beautifully highlighted. Now, Emily, it was an absolute pleasure to be able to show you that particular giraffe. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Here's another animal that is equally entertaining to watch at times, but one that is much more sociable. Oh, I think those males might be... Oh, no, they're not too. But coming with a completely different herd structure. While we make our way in, I know that Zach was wondering why it is that giraffe don't live in herds in the same way that, for example, elephants do and impala and zebra do. And the answer is, I don't know entirely why it is that they don't live in a herd. I'm not sure what it's... Oh, they do. They will come together in big, sometimes groups of up to 20 or 40, depending on where you are. But it's a loose herd and it's not a permanent herd. It's not something that they're going to stay in for the rest of their life. So to be completely honest with you, Zach, who is watching all the way in New York, I'm not entirely sure what it is that has caused some animals to evolve in the way that they have in terms of their social structure. It might be a size thing, but then elephants, of course, are the biggest animals and they're quite comfortable in herds. This is quite a little interesting collection we've got here. The females wandering away at the back, and then a couple of really nice big males. Now, waterbuck, in contrast to the giraffe, have set herd structures. The male will have his harem, and then you'll get these bachelor groups of spectacular males, just like this one. He's really impressive looking. One of our biggest antelope species. Just look at those horns with those deep grooves in them. Yes, you're beautiful. Hello, boy. It must be very warm in that coat. Another nice big-sized bulls that are following behind the females, maybe hoping to get a chance to mate with them. Otherwise, they'll stay with their bachelor groups until they're able to compete with another male and win over the hearts of the females, so to speak. And this is pretty much this herd's only access to water is around this area. And if we look at where that particular bull was grazing, it's the greenest patch of grass, and I think it might even be where the water from the lodge that can flow into the dam, that's where it comes out. So he was probably looking for some nice clean water to drink there. And they carry with them a very distinctive odor. It's a very similar smell to the wet dog scent. A very musky tinge to it. Always interesting as well to watch the behavior of these animals at times like this. Well, very often when I've gone to areas like the Kruger with permanently flowing rivers, you see them all standing around in there. But for the most part, they can't really go and stand in this stagnant dam. Let me see if I can get us a different view. Now Zach has another question for us. Zach wanted to know how many different antelope species there are on the reserve and whether or not they move too much to know. And for the most part, no. We can give you a pretty exact answer. And I'm going to run through them all rapidly in my head whilst we look at the waterbuck, and I'll try and list them for you without forgetting anything. So starting from small, let's try and think of them all. So we've got the steenbok and the duiker, the impala, nyala, bushbuck, kudu, waterbuck. Have I said impala? Let's say impala. Eland, sable, although those are generally not seen as often. And I feel like I'm forgetting a really obvious one. Sharp's vryspok, which is the smallest antelope out here, but it's very, very seldom seen. That's about 10 of them that we see very commonly. Oh, wildebeest are an antelope, which you were just watching at the moment. And even buffalo and giraffe, although they fall into the bovids, are technically very closely related to antelope species. The biggest of those would be these... Oh, hello, boys. You're going to... Really spectacular antelope species. Zach, I'm trying to rack my brains and think of other antelope that I've forgotten. I honestly can't think of any more. So we're looking at between 10 and 11. Now there's sesame and red hartebeest as well, but those are fairly unusual to see around this area. You might see them every now and again. But the species that I've listed for you are the most common that you'll see. And also, in my opinion, some of the most beautiful antelope around South Africa. And that little female is very young. Still a bit fluffy. It's still a baby. Hey. So, Isabella, you were wondering if these bucks have babies? And that was quite a nice example of one. We've got mostly their old males, just like this boy. But we can get you another visual of the baby. Isabella, by the way, is 4. And one of our regular viewers. Hold on, Isabella, I'm going to get you a nice view of the little baby. Because waterbuck babies, I think, are some of the cutest babies out here. Hey, little fluffy thing. Don't run away. Now, waterbuck are one of the antelope species without a particular breeding season. So you get babies throughout the year. This time of year is the best time, or in theory is the best time. It's usually when we start to get our rains. Here we go. 2 babies. For Isabella, probably somewhere in the region of about 6 months old or so. Hello, little fluffy things. Definitely one of the cutest, cuddliest looking creatures until you actually get a whiff of them, at which point the cuddle appeal definitely decreases. Interestingly, I don't know where their mothers are. I've only seen this herd of males, and I wonder whether this group or these 2 calves haven't been separated, unless the mothers are just a little bit further into that bush. In which case, that might explain why they're hanging out with a bachelor group. It's just that herding instinct is so strong. And they do seem to be a little bit nervous. Could be that they got separated whilst the herd was running away for some reason. They just haven't managed to make their way back together. So they have congregated outside the staff village of Arathusa, which is where you can may be able to hear the chattering coming from. There's a loud and very heated discussion happening in there. Alrighty. We shall leave our waterbucks to go about their afternoon business, and let us see what other wonders Arathusa has to offer. Ah, yes. Goldie spotted something interesting. Awesome. In fact, we can even see the entrance. Well done, wildebeest. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a hammerkorp nest, and I'm sure our regular viewers will have seen it before. But it is the biggest nest of any single bird in the world. That's the entrance there that the hammerkorps use. And the hammerkorp is not an enormous bird, but they construct these amazing structures that look like a complete mess. Like it. But you never know, it would be about the right time of year. Awesome. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. The other thing that some hammerkorps do is build... Oh, waterbuck are sparring, sorry. They do build false entrances. There we go. I think that young male finally managed to entice one of the others to battle with him. Oh, and there's a tortoise as well. Big tortoise. Watch out, tortoise. You might get squashed by a waterbuck. And you see how wonderfully placed those ridges are. And it's a way of stopping the horns from sliding too easily down each other, so that they don't accidentally stab the other male. You can hear them clashing. I'm just going to be quiet for one moment. The aim here, of course, is to pin the other waterbuck to the ground. This is just a very gentle sparring session. It's nothing too serious. It's staying practiced so when an actual fight happens, they know how to go about it. You can see them, whenever they rub their faces on each other like that, that's also a way of scent marking the other male. And it's an attempted show of dominance as well, because they do have very potent scent glands near their eyes. They're pretty much equally matched in size, just looking at these two. The one on the left may be ever so slightly bigger, but their horns are roughly the same. It's really... They're stuck. They really do almost look stuck together. They're not. They will be able to slide their way out. They just have to get... There we go. Oh, that was quite a hard hit. Awesome. I've never seen a waterbuck sparring go on for this long. I'm sure this has very strict rules. Now, both of them have forward tilting points. And David, who's watching in the UK, you're wondering if I can explain the reason behind forward-facing... Sorry, let me rephrase that. Forward-facing horns, for example, the reedbuck, or even the waterbuck in this case, versus the backwards-pointing horns of, say, for example, an impala or a kudu. And the answer to that is... not necessarily, unless maybe we look at habitat, and depending on what the animal uses those horns for. But there isn't really a correlation, because reedbuck are live in vegetation that is just as thick as impala and kudu. You give it some thought, David. I'll let you know a bit later on if I've managed to think of any reason. The game is up, though. Sparring is done. It's quite a lot of exertion for a really hot afternoon. I think it's Sunday, a very hot Sunday afternoon. Let's continue on and see what we can find. looking for any of that fruit that is renowned for its uses, something that human beings have utilized in our historical past as a way of making coffee, but definitely something that is on this little monkey's menu. Well spotted, wildebeest, thank you. Right, is there anything else that's hanging out around here? I think we might have seen all that we have to see around the Arathusa Dam. From our waterbuck that we were watching. There's the rest of the troop. Barbara wants to know if a waterbuck would be too big for a female leopard. And yes, I would be very impressed with a female leopard that managed to take out a waterbuck, unless it was a baby. Monkeys are playing shy and hard to get at the moment. Barbara, never say never, nothing is impossible. But for the most part, a waterbuck would be, it's about, I would say, somewhere in the region of around 200 kilograms worth of animal. Usually around the biggest prey that a female leopard will take will be about the size of an impala ewe. Where are you, monkeys? Hello. There's that little face. Another interesting example of why you shouldn't always necessarily rely on what monkeys eat. The monkeys are eating the seeds of the tambuti trees that we're surrounded by. Although generally our appetite matches in terms of toxicity, or our appetite generally matches that of baboons, monkeys can often tolerate things that we wouldn't be able to eat. And tambuti in particular is incredibly toxic. So if you ever find yourself in a bush survival situation, which I would deem unlikely, but if you ever do, don't necessarily assume that what monkeys eat is safe for human consumption. Now, Barbara, just to get back to your question, in terms of prey selection, that's the amazing thing about the sort of size difference between a female and a male leopard. So although a waterbuck would be quite outside the realms of a female leopard's kill, unless she was a particularly impressive individual, I would say that a female waterbuck would be, for a male like, for example, the Anderson male, who Brent says is probably the biggest leopard he's ever seen. I still haven't seen him in the flesh, but I have seen photos, and he's absolutely enormous. I'm sure a male like Anderson could take down a waterbuck if he seriously put his mind to it. I mean, there's stories of leopards taking down young giraffe, so anything is possible. I'm still chatting a bit about the waterbuck. Roadblock. Ever so slightly. Just casually shift around the elephant blockage. Right, back to the waterbuck. Lynn, you were wondering about the purpose of the white circle of the waterbuck's, or on the waterbuck's bottom. Now the traditional story behind that went something along the lines of when the animals all climbed into Noah's Ark, the monkeys painted the toilet seats white, and the waterbuck were the first to fall prey to them. Scientifically, there's not always a universally accepted explanation. A lot of the people say it's what's known as a follow me sign. So when they run away, the white stands out on their backsides and means that the others can follow in a herd. That maybe makes sense if you're looking at something as numerous as an impala, but for waterbuck that are going to try and disappear into thick vegetation, my personal opinion is there's a bit of flash coloration to it as well. So a predator's eye, especially if it sees in black and white, is immediately drawn to that flash of white. So the waterbuck will run in a mad dash into some thick vegetation, then stop and turn around and look at the threat. So the predator's eye will be drawn to where it last saw the white flash, which would mean that it misses the waterbuck by a meter or two and gives the waterbuck a chance to carry on running. Hello, Baba. This place is teeming with babies. Hello, little one. It's a tough start out here. And we were seeing those male waterbucks play, and Vera is watching in Ohio. Vera was wondering if the animals ever suffer from concussion or brain damage from sparring. And the answer is, I think there's a possibility, especially for the buffalo, which is why they've got that incredible bony plate around the base of their horns, that boss, as a way of absorbing impact. I don't think it applies so much with animals like waterbuck or impala, or they spar in a very different manner, whereas buffalo go for quite a run-up. We've seen them lock horns for fun, but when they're really serious about it, they come together with a rather sickening crunch whenever they bash heads. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a level of brain damage, or at least a slight concussion, or maybe just even a headache. I know that a lot of animals, in terms of brain damage, a lot of it happens to the cats. Not necessarily brain damage, but definitely serious concussion comes from cats that have been kicked by the animals that they're trying to hunt. Do a quick scout around the airstrip. It's one of the places that Shadow does enjoy being. And I was trying to work out whether after her confrontation with her mom, whether her approach is going to be to stick around the area or to move away as fast as possible. It's a difficult call to make because they feel fairly evenly matched. It wasn't a serious discussion or debate. More a very subtle warning. While we continue on our search and see if we can find Shadow, let's head back across to Brent and see what he's got to say.
So we are checking the Buffalo's boundary. That slight hope that that male cheetah was found has come across. So no tracks yet, but I'm going to check towards the Buffalo's water hole. Maybe it might appear. And it is, even though the cloud covers come in a bit, it is still very warm. And I have been mocked in camp recently, a recent purchase I made. And I purchased this to help me with how hot it is on safari. So here is this little thing, and you pump it for pressure, and then I have them. Oh no, I broke it. Oh no, there's a hole. Too much pump. There we go, and it boundary, but now it's got a leak. It's made.
Well, after that very brief update, where I'm afraid you might have lost Brent in mid-sentence, you're back again with me. And our exploration of the airport. Not the airport, but the airstrip. I believe that Brent was showing you his newest method of keeping cool with his blue misting device, which, as I'm sure many of you can imagine, we find highly entertaining. But having seen it and how well it works at keeping cool on these really hot days, I'm actually quite jealous. the most picturesque of areas, but it is a perfect place, and a lot of animals really enjoy being around an airstrip. It's nice and open for them. Hello, lapwings. We've got babies somewhere. You're just telling me to go away. Is there a warthog? I couldn't see what camera you were looking at. Oh, there was a warthog. The warthog is now running full tilt away from us. Oh dear. All spotted, wildebeest. There is now a disappearing bottom. We're definitely not going to be able to catch up with him. I was so busy looking around for lapwing babies. The other thing I saw around this airstrip was a black-backed jackal, which was the first and only black-backed jackal I've seen while I've been here. It's incredible to me that they are so unusual in this area. I don't know what it is. The side stripes seem to be much more numerous. The reserve that I was working at, which isn't that far from here, over the past 3 years, it's completely the opposite way around. There's more black-backed jackal than there are side striped. And I have no idea why there's that skew in numbers and what causes it. There's not much in terms of a difference between the two species. Sure, there's no water here either. I really hope that these clouds that have blown in are bringing some rain. Genevieve, just to continue on the subject of the drought and the dryness, Genevieve was wondering how many animals self-medicate and how much the dryness will affect that. I think that more animals self-medicate than we realize. Elephants definitely do it. If they're not feeling very well, they'll go and eat some tamburti. Porcupines eat the bark of tamburti a lot. It acts as a sort of a cleanser for their digestive system. Baby elephants chew on things like spike thorns and silver cluster leaves as a way of helping with teething problems. But I'm sure that the animals know medicinal uses of plants better than we do and utilize them more than I realize, or more than we realize. Found some more warthogs to make up for the one that got away. Hello, woodies. No, don't run away. Please don't run away. You can stop there. Tail in the air. It's interesting. I think it's the fact more than anything that we've just stopped and are watching them. It's kept them going. Now, that warthog run may look very comical, but I can promise you there's not a single person watching. Oh, you're going to come say hello. It's okay, you can relax now. Promise you, we're not after you. We just want to look at you. Identical stares. But yes, there's not a single person amongst us who could outrun a warthog. They are incredibly fast. That burst of speed. Coming closer now to investigate. Sort of, very timidly. Looks like a male to me. Young male though. Hello. You don't mean you any harm, warthog. Nice to get to see them out in the open. But yes, I promise you the burst of speed that they can get up to when they launch themselves out of their burrows is first of all a fantastic way to test the strength of your heart if you're out walking. Standing in front of a warthog burrow is a very bad idea, and I've had some serious frights from warthogs flying out of them. Hello, piggies. He just grunted at me. All right. Their eyesight is not spectacular, so they know that we're here, but they're not quite sure what to make of us. And they can't decide whether to run away or investigate further. Hello, warthogs. It's okay. And they've clearly spent the day wallowing in mud. Tiny little tusks, so they're young individuals. They're probably only about a year or a year and a half old. Those tusks are only really just starting to come through. Two young males. Looking down their noses at us. Hello, boys. They're trying to... They can smell us, they can hear us, and they can sort of see us, but can't quite decide how they feel about it. Nope. Time to go. They don't really get any further away from us. They've just done a really large circle around us, stopping every now and again to investigate. Nope. Tails like aerials. Nope. I guess we didn't meet with their approval. Always very entertaining to watch them with that level of curiosity that they showed. The storm that I thought might be coming is completely blown away. It seems to be the way that the weather's going over the last few days. It builds up on the horizon, but then most of it gets caught up in the Drakensberg Mountains. It doesn't really come anywhere near us. Warthogs trotted off into the distance, and Sandy in New York, you were wondering how fast a warthog could run. I would say, Sandy, probably somewhere in the region of about 50 odd kilometers at their fastest sprint, which is, hold on one moment, about 20 to 23 miles an hour. Pretty fast, faster than I can run, definitely. You need to be quick when there's things out here that are going to chase you. And generally it's a very sharp burst of speed to a point of safety. But with those razor sharp tusks that they have, act as some serious weaponry. And I'm not talking about the tusks that you can see, the top tusks. I'm talking about the tusks at the bottom that are sharpened to razor edges by rubbing along the bottom teeth every time they close their jaws. Now, what's been phenomenal to watch is a lot of the warthogs are looking incredibly thin at the moment. And although it's not unusual, it's not like the Lion King. Warthogs don't live on bugs, but they do occasionally supplement their diet of roots and plant material with carcasses. They will scavenge off carcasses. But fairly recently I saw a report, and I'm sure many of you did as well, of that warthog that killed a baby impala deliberately and then ate it. And that's a really, really unusual situation. I've certainly never heard of that happening before. And there there is a lot to be questioned as to whether or not it's because they're struggling so much with this drought and desperate for nutrients. Because that level of aggression is fairly unprecedented, or at least to my knowledge. And warthogs generally are particularly sensitive, along with buffalo and eland, are particularly sensitive to changes in climate conditions. One animal that's not sensitive to water loss is one that Jared was asking about. And Jared, you wanted to know whether or not we have any meerkats here. Jared, the answer is no, we don't. We do get them in South Africa, but much further west towards the more arid, deserty areas. So the Kalahari areas is where they are best adapted. Typically, they're in the same family as the mongoose family. So we get the relatives here, the dwarf mongoose, the banded mongoose. They're their closest relatives, and we do see them, and they fill that particular ecological niche in this area. The fascinating thing about meerkats, and I spent quite a long period of time before I went to university observing meerkat behavior, and although they don't need to drink any water, their bodies are so well adapted to extracting every piece of nutrient out of the insects that they eat and all the liquid they need. But if you give them the opportunity to drink water, they will absolutely race towards it and fight over it. It's so interesting to see the way that animals are adapted to the climates that they live in. Bruce, you read my mind. Bruce has mentioned that he hasn't seen many lions recently and was wondering whether it's because they're mainly nocturnal. Bruce, they are mainly nocturnal. That is when they do the majority of their hunting and moving about, when it's a little bit cooler and when they have the advantage of their spectacular night vision to rely upon. That being said, at the moment, there are plenty of lions around here. We're very close to one of the highest densities of lions in Africa. Just at the moment, they appear to have decided to all sort of patrol along the edge of our boundaries, the areas that we can go into, but not quite here. They are around. There's 5 Birmingham boys on the neighboring property, around Chitwa. So they are around. It's just a matter of them coming towards our Traverse area. Speaking about the Birmingham boys, we have a question about whether or not the Birmingham boys are still split up or whether they have been seen together. That hornbill is nice and close. Sorry, I will answer Vern Scott's question about the Birmingham boys in one moment. There it's hiding. Nope. There's something about, well done, Liam. Something about grey hornbills that I just never seem to manage to get them on camera. There we go. It's a nice big specimen. You don't see them as often as we see the red and the yellow billed, so for new viewers, a new addition to your bird lists that we spoke about this morning. And we added the plum-coloured starling or the violet-backed starling. Right, back to the question about the Birmingham boys. What's interesting that's happened, what we've seen play out with the Birmingham boys over the last few weeks or the last few months, So now that they've established themselves pretty much established themselves for now as the dominant coalition, there's been a bit of friction between them as they no longer have to band together to chase away any other threats. It's now a question of establishing the hierarchy within the coalition, or at the very least work out who gets access to the ladies. And they've been fighting amongst each other for quite a while. That's pretty common within male coalitions. It's also very common for big coalitions, so sort of talking about 4 or more male lions, to actually split up and patrol separate sections of their territory. At the moment, as far as I know, they're in groups of 2 and 3, but I'm sure we'll find that they'll come together again and then split apart, all depending on whether or not they've killed a big buffalo, or whether there's a female in residence or an estrus. Those are generally the 2 determining factors as to whether or not the Birmingham boys will be together or apart. As soon as another lion coalition starts to call, so if the Matindas in the south or the Salati males in the north, if they start to roar, you'll probably find that the Birminghams will join together again, and they might do it every night for all we know. Join up to put on a show of strength while they call, and then split back up again towards the morning. In open vehicles, and I know that for a lot of new viewers that might seem a bit concerning. And Julie, you mentioned that earlier this year people have been killed by leaving their car windows open. So what is the difference between what we do and what they do? Julie, as far as I can think of in those specific examples, those lions were not wild lions. They were captive lions that were fed out of the back of some vehicles, and the specific instructions in those areas were to keep those windows rolled up, because the lions in that area didn't have the same natural fear of human beings that they do here. Now, although they are wild animals and they need our constant respect, and we should always remember that just because we know them and we think we know them, it was important to give them that respect and to focus all of your attention and energy on reading their behavior and the signs that the animal is giving you. And that's something that we focus most of our attention and experience on, is watching the little signs of the animal's mood, from a tail flick to an ear flick. But I feel far more nervous driving a car around a city than I do driving our open vehicle out here. The chances of an animal jumping in with us are pretty much next to nothing, because they do have that natural fear. They're also really, really used to safari vehicles driving around them, to the point that they ignore them almost completely. And with elephants here as well, it's very much, I will let an elephant approach my car right to the point that it stands close to the bonnet. But that will be the elephant's choice. It will not be an approach that I will deliberately make. So it's all about a bit of respect and a bit of give and take while you watch the animals out here. Your chances of an attack are incredibly slim. And the amount of wonder that we get to share out here is incredible. I'm going to try and show you some of those now. One of my favorite animals. Probably unlikely to jump into the vehicle and attack us. The smallest predator on the reserve. Hello, little ones. Are you all hiding? They all disappeared. Let's give it one moment. They might pop their heads out, and this is such a perfect situation. I can see, oh, there we go. There's the one a little bit to the right. Popped its head up. Hello. Oh, I heard an elephant. We'll go find them next. 2 little heads. 3 little heads. Good afternoon. Dwarf mongoose. Having chatted a bit about meerkats, and I mentioned that we have their close relatives. Well, these are the perfect example. Hello, 4 little heads. The whole family's come out now, curiously poking their heads out to have a look at us. Now, I mentioned that they are my favorite, or one of my favorite animals out here, and that's because they're always entertaining. They're usually up to mischief or foraging around. At this time of the day, though, they've all rushed back to their various burrows. It's time to start settling down for the evening. Now in this group there'll be an alpha female and an alpha male tucked away in there, and they will be the only pair that breeds. The rest of them will be all focused around helping to raise their babies themselves. Going to let the Arethusa crowd move past. Alrighty, well, let's continue on our search for other magical little creatures. Bye-bye, dwarf mongoose. Have a good evening. Be careful. Be safe. I think they found a beautiful termite mound spot there. Well sheltered, very protected. Perfect spot. Okay. Year, the temperature and the humidity is absolutely oppressive. We keep having these evenings where it feels like it wants to have a really solid electrical thunderstorm, and it just doesn't happen. Hello, little one. Another example of a beautiful but tiny creature. For Zach, who wanted to know how many antelope species we have, well, we've seen quite a few of them already. And this is a tiny little male steenbok. With those shape, he's also being bugged by those biting flies, and I don't blame him. They are incredibly irritating at the moment. Ooh. Well, that was bizarre. He definitely didn't look at us when he ran away. Trying to see if there's any kind of a bird or something that might have given him a fright. When you're that size, and essentially leopard snack size, it pays to be on alert pretty much all the time. Not sure what startled him though. Must have been a slight rustle in the grass. I don't see any sign of anything else. Right, now somewhere over here, there is a leopard breaking trees. Not a leopard. Got leopards on the brain. An elephant breaking trees. I definitely heard a crunch of a branch breaking. I can actually see their tracks on the road. So let's see if we can find a wonderful elephant herd to share with you all. It's been a long time since I've had a nice long elephant sighting. I'm starting to go into withdrawal. I really wouldn't mind spending a bit more time with them. Found him. Moving away from us. No boy. Looks like a nice big bull. Judging by his tracks, that's what he is. Animals seem to be wanting to hide in thick vegetation. I'm just going to stop so you can see the elephant, so that you don't think I'm completely crazy. There you go. That huge swinging tail. Hello, big boy. Don't you want to come and say hello? Surely you want to be on TV. And he could well be quite thirsty and on his way to water. He doesn't look like he's stopping to feed. He does seem to be very much on the move. I'm trying to think if there's a way that I can circumnavigate him. There's a nice open patch here, so let's try and go in here. Here he goes. He is a very big male, but he's not going to stop until he gets to, either until he finds a nice tree that he wants to snack on or some water. Hello, boy. Please can we come and say hello to you? Large bull elephants are probably some of my favorite to spend time with. Here he is. We're getting there. Closer, closer, bit by bit. The wonderful thing about them is that they are usually fairly confident because they're pretty much the biggest things out here. He does look like he might be in must, so we'll give him a bit of extra personal space. For those of you unfamiliar with elephants, the must cycle in males is where their testosterone levels peak. It happens about once a year for these big bulls. It tends to make them slightly more aggressive, always not too seriously in must. I'm just having a look at the liquid that's dripping down the side of his face. Hello, boy. So when the males go into must, they secrete from the temporal glands, which is what's running down there between the eye and the ear. And both males and females do it, but it's a useful sign in looking for an elephant bull in must. It's a place where they secrete their pheromones and their hormones. There's that incredible, very flexible trunk of theirs. Multi-purpose tool. Almost as impressive as our hands and our thumbs. Hello, boy. He's beautiful. He's still a young bull. He's probably only around 25 to 30. He doesn't have the big, thick tusks of a really mature male. But still perfectly comfortable in himself. Hello, boy. With those enormous cooling ears flapping. And on a day like today, I wish I had that kind of cooling system. Here he's got a V-notch in the bottom of his ear, and each and every elephant has identifying cuts and flaps in their ears, and all that's come from is from walking through areas with thorns, maybe creating a tiny little scratch, and that scratch gets a bit infected and it eats away because the skin of the ear is so thin. It eats away a little bit of it before it heals up and clears. Some elephants have really tiny nicks and scratches, some have big cuts, and it'll be something that is with them for the rest of their lives. So if we ever see an elephant with a V in the bottom of his left ear, we'll know that it's this particular male. Moving off again. And at the moment, the best view that we have is his bottom. I'm sure that you've all been wondering, while I reposition to try and see the fin, I'm sure that you've all been wondering what Brent has been up to, so let's head across and find out.
We've just got a report from James, who is out walking on, he says there were alarm calls on quarantine, so let's go have a look. Impala alarm calling, maybe we'll get lucky. There's an impala. While we listen, there's a hoo-hoo dust farthing in the road. Oh, off it goes, African hoo-hoo. Where's that impala I saw? Maybe they're looking, they seem to be looking this way, looking at other impala. So it's possibly there was another big herd of impala earlier on the far western, northwestern edge of quarantine. So let's get there and see if we can see what they're looking at or what they were alarm calling at 3 minutes ago. Over there, so I'm just gonna zoot across. Oh, look at that sky. So we're following up on alarm calls that James Henry, and speaking of James Henry, he's calling me on the radio. Western Edge quarantine. James was the one who told us about the impala alarm calling. He says they've stopped alarming now. Probably thanks on that little road on the west of quarantine. So James has been checking on foot for the Queen. And hopefully his ears picked up the impala alarming at the Queen, and he's recommended I go north on this little road. So we're checking very carefully through here. I'm so busy looking over there. Which were the impala? Those ones.
In the sun.
Oh, that's beautiful. Let me just go back a second. And look at that. That just makes an incredible visage. I think James has been running. He's panting on top of that termite mound. So there's impala.
Calling there. But what they were calling at, I don't know.
Oh, we'll check around to Zoe's. Where did you run from?
I came from those clearings where the giraffe is.
Oh, isn't that spectacular? Well, we're going to continue checking for the Queen. And we will see you later, Jamesy.
Bye.
Toodles. So I think it's a good idea to check back up on Zoe's. Just in case Karula came north of this block. So we saw an incredible incredible thing today. Karula blew a spit bubble, and James was wondering, is it not a sign of a respiratory infection? No, James, I think she was salivating quite heavily from having that sort of territorial altercation with her daughter, and I just think while she was growling, she managed to blow that bubble. So don't worry, I don't think she has a respiratory ailment. So there, we got impala all around here. Okay, they're looking quite relaxed. Not like the queen has just tried to eat one of them. We had that incredible sighting this morning with a mother and a daughter leopard in the same sighting, and Shadow, the daughter, was one of Karula's first babies. And Brooklyn, who's 10 years old, would like to know, why don't a mother and daughter greet each other with love? Well, Brooklyn, it's because at the moment they're competing for the same things, baby impalas and males. So they won't actually physically fight very often. Like if they had been not a mom and daughter, if they hadn't been related, they probably would have had a big fight after meeting. And I think it's just now that she sort of, Shadow has left her mom and has left her mom probably 8 years ago, that they don't see each other too often. And the reason her mom won't fight with her is because she knows it's related, so it's her genes that are being passed on. But still wouldn't like her to come too far into the core section of her territory. I don't see any tracks. I'm just going to switch off here and have another little listen. This is a favorite haunt of the Queen of Juma, this section here, and these drainage lines leading up towards quarantine. I'm also listening for birds, like rattlings, testiculars will occasionally alarm call, and a leopard. I can't hear anything at the moment though. I can hear a rattling testicular. And it is alarm calling, so let's go have a look there. Could be a mongoose or a bird of prey, but it's somewhere in this little system here, so let's go around to the other side. Somewhere in here, impala over there. While we look through this thicket here, Michael would like to know if oh, there's kudu in here as well. Now that's not a good sign. Kudu are generally quite a bit sharper than impala when it comes to spotting predators, and they don't lie as much. So impala, quite often when you hear their alarm calls, they're alarm calling at a ghost. Kudu don't look too stressed at all. It is possible that she might have passed somewhere else where they didn't see her. those big ears just move around, picking up the slightest little noises in the bush. Well, let's carry on. Well, it has been such a hot day, it might be worth checking the Gallagher waterhole. But while we do that, Michael asked the question, if a female leopard was to mate with her father, would the cubs have genetic defects? And it is possible, definitely, Michael, but normally it takes, with leopards and lions, a couple of more generations for it to become more apparent than it does in humans. But yes, that is one of the reasons the male leopards will disperse from their natal area, and that even over time you watch male leopard territories move and change to try avoid mating with their daughters. Again, I don't think they plan to. I think it's the genetics taking over. They're pre-programmed to ensure a healthy population. We're on the search for leopards. Jared's wondering, what is the biggest prey a leopard would take down? Jared, the biggest prey I know of is an adult male kudu. And that was in the Sabi Sands. I have also seen leopard take sub-adult buffalo out of big buffalo herds, but that is very unusual behavior. And I'm very carefully checking every termite mound, not for James Henry, but for Karula. Most leopards will use them as vantage points while hunting. Always good to have a squiz at the termite mounds. But because it's been quite hot, she might be heading towards Gallagher for an evening sundowner. Go make our way towards the waterhole, and while we do that, let's go look at that spectacular sky with Jamie.
There are not many places in the world where you have sunsets that carry the same depth of feeling that they do out here, particularly when accompanied to the backdrop of the Drakensberg Mountains. And this is really one of the more spectacular ones. And the reason that I say that is there is a sense of expectation in the air as night falls. The prey animals are all on high alert. The predators are starting to come out and move around as it gets a bit cooler. And you get the calls of the woodlands kingfishers as they start to head home for the night. And spectacular to think that the view that you are looking out on is one of the biggest wilderness areas in the entire world. Larger than some small countries. And on evenings like tonight, it's quite easy to transport yourself back to 500, 600 years ago. I imagine that the first people to have roamed these lands must have been as taken by the sunsets as we are. Well, something that is always worth doing is, no matter how frantic the search for all kinds of wondrous creatures might be, it's something that I always do, is whenever I see a spectacular sunset, unless I'm hot on the tracks of another animal, I always try and stop myself and force myself to have a look at the beauty of an evening like this evening. Right, well, from a spectacular sunset to a spectacular animal, Brent has been successful in his pursuit, so let's head across to him and the Queen of Djuma.
So the Queen has graced us with her presence, and she's behaving a bit more like a queen and not blowing spit bubbles this evening. And look at that, isn't that stunning? Lying up right in front of the Gallico Lodge, next to the waterhole. So it doesn't look like she managed to catch an impala during the day. But this is one of her favorite haunts around the lodge here. Look at that sky behind her. Isn't this just an incredibly serene sighting? Can you hear all the different birds? The red-chested cuckoo. Jacobin cuckoo calling as well. And crested in the Tel Franklins. So, we were talking about birds giving alarm calls at leopards, and Beth's wondering why would they do that when a leopard won't eat them. I'm afraid, Beth, they will, especially when leopards are young. They spend a lot of time hunting everything they can. And they just don't like predators around, and when they're alarmed at, leopards don't like to hang about, so they move out of that area quite quickly. They prefer to have their presence not known. Absolutely gorgeous animal. Listening to all the sounds that are about. You can see how hot it is by her panting. Very interested to see where she's going to move next. First a bit of preening, and see that very distinctive sort of nibble, to try to remove ticks and fleas. And I'm afraid not even the Queen of Djuma can escape the ectoparasites. constantly aware. See how she just checks if she hears a little sound nearby. Well, a big welcome to Anna, who's a new viewer, who's wondering which leopard this is. Anna, this is Karula, the queen of Djuma. And when she turns to face us, you'll see a very distinctive set of spots in between her eyes. And with a bit of imagination, you can see that they spell out the word wow. Oh, it looks like she's going to be up and about. Unfortunately, she is heading into a very difficult area. If she goes directly to the north of us, it's a myriad of little, actually a nightmare of little drainage lines. To go right behind us instead. Scent marking. There are some Inyala down in the drainage line here that we saw earlier. Unfortunately, we are not able to follow her on that path, but we will try to stick with her. We can't get a car through there. So, Rennie in Detroit, because we're probably going to do some off-roading to stick with the Queen, is wondering, what are the rules about off-roading at Djuma? Well, Rennie, basically, you can off-road in most areas. You just don't off-road on seep lines, which is where water naturally moves from the crests through to the drainage systems, or over slow-growing trees like tambuerties and jackalberries, African ebonies, scotias, and all the trees that take a really long time to grow and would be affected. And most of the trees we do drive over, your combretions, your bush willows and that, will actually bounce up if you drive over them correctly by straddling them. Oh, watch out, little guy. There's a leopard around. There's a little scrub hare. I've actually seen this one a few times here. I'm just going to unfortunately scoot past the hare because we don't want to lose the Queen. Bye, little one. Okay, so that path she went on goes through there. Pops out at the bottom of this little drainage line. Hopefully she doesn't sneak and go behind us, but I'm hoping she's going to pop out here. So this is where that path comes out. I've walked through here many times. So we're still checking here. Nothing yet. There she is, she's coming. going to pop out over there. She's just behind these buffalo thorns. There she is. Smelling quite intently there. So I'm hoping she comes towards us. I've got a much better chance of sticking with her. If she goes that way where the light's flashing, it's going to be very difficult. We might get another few glimpses of it if she... Oh! Looks like the queen is being very obliging this evening. She's taking the other path. She's keeping me on my toes. It looks like she's going to go up to where that scrub hare was. So I'm not going to keep the torch on just in case she pops up and spots that scrub hare. It looks like she should pop up right here somewhere. She could, of course, change her mind. She was just below that little spot. Chandra showed you that little gap there. Well, it's one of those now. Do I stay or do I go back down the hill? Did she change the direction again? And Karula is one of the only leopards I've followed a lot that does this to me. Most leopards I can generally guess their movements correctly most of the time. Karula is the queen of the zigzag as well as Juma. A lot of debate whether Karula is pregnant or not, and Lynn and Patty are wondering, and I can honestly say, Lynn and Patty, I don't know. If she is, it's still far too early for us to tell. So let's go back down here. See anything, Chandra? A little bit higher than me there. There's Karula's giving us the runaround. find her. Let's go see what Jamie's up to.
Very well, Brent continues on his search for Karula. We are searching for her daughter. And it's the perfect time for them to be out and about, and this is one of her favorite spots. We'll keep our eyes peeled. And as I said, these evening times carry with them a wondrous sense of expectation. That is because everything is moving about. And there's a sense within us, a very strong sense, sorry impala, that I think goes back to some of the baser instincts, that a fear of the dark is actually quite a rational fear when you think about the area that we've come, or at least where we were a couple of 100,000 years ago. Now, for new viewers who are joining us and wondering about the spotlight and the technique that we use, it's because the animals have a layer, reflective layer at the back of their eyes that helps them with their night vision. Oops. Apparently I don't have it because I just hit a termite mound, but we'll gloss over that for now. So they have a reflective layer at the back of their eyes, and it's known as the tapetum lucidum. And it increases all kinds of ambient light by reflecting it back. It gives them the ability to see in the dark. That being said, there are certain daytime animals like the impala and the waterbuck that we've seen today that although they have that layer, they're not adapted as well to nocturnal living, which is why we don't spotlight them at all, because it actually detracts from their night vision. So it does them damage, and it puts them far more at risk of being hunted than other animals, because it essentially blinds them for about an hour. And I don't mean a quick flash, I mean sitting watching them with the spotlight on them. One of the other things that we're using it for, apart from the lights of nocturnal predators, is to look for things like chameleons that stand out incredibly well as bush babies. I've had very little success in finding shadow, but the same cannot be said for Brent, so let's head across to him.
Success! Tara spotted her as we were checking. She's moving her way right down to in front of Buyutela camp. Have we heard her again? I hope not. She should be right here. There she is. Just going to be on the game drive radio for a second. Whoa! I think that was a snake. Did you see that jump? That was incredible. I think she got a fright from a snake. Sorry, stations. Just confirming. Did anyone copy about the update on Karula? She's on the shortcuts between Gallagher Waterhole and Mvubu Road, heading towards Mvubu. Can't make your way, only station here. Going right behind us. Is she going onto that path? Yes, she is. So we are on the right zone. There's a little sneaky road that we've used to actually view Karula before. It goes along here. being tricky again. I'm not sure whether she's going to go south or north. I think with Karula, best to be right behind her. We've actually found it. There's two really big African ebonies on top of termite mounds that we found it at before. This is one of them. Oh, little head scratch. Looks like she might. So yep, scent mark. Just took the light off there. She stopped like she might have heard or seen something. So I don't want to ruin her hunt. She's definitely hunting. Okay, that's why the lights are off. Her body language has changed. There still is a little bit of ambient light. So you can see that. Look at that. You can just see that posture change immediately. There are quite a lot of impala and bushbuck in this drainage line. We are right in front of Vuurtele camp. Look at that incredible movement. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? So we can't really move the car now. We gotta stay quiet. Can't make out anything ahead of us. So I'm gonna wait till she moves a safe distance away from us, and then I'm gonna go out of this area and wait on the other side of these thick bushes. But we're going to wait till she moves into this thick bush up ahead. Now look carefully when she moves again. She'll put her back foot in the exact same spot. She puts her front foot to minimize noise while she's stalking. And yeah, a little scops owl calling. So she's just laying down now. Still watching intently into that area. Sorry, I apologize. Not a scops owl, a barred owlet. I'm so busy concentrating on Karula. I think it could be impala. It could also be bushbuck. There's the owl. in the tree above her, or to the right of her. A little bit lower. There we go. Little barred owlet, making those wonderful little calls. So this is really, really typical leopard hunting behavior. So if she feels she might be spotted, she'll sit stock still till she feels she can move again. And sometimes they can stalk for hours. We're lucky we've still got a little bit of ambient light. Because if it was dark, we wouldn't be able to put any other lights on and we wouldn't see her, because we don't want to affect what's happening in the hunt. I'm watching her behavior to see if she does sort of give up. And you'll be able to tell from her body language if she has given up on the stalk. Sometimes she might just let the animals move off and try again when they're in a better position. The really exciting thing for all of us is there's a really good chance we're going to be able to find her again on the sunrise safari. We are going to leave her shortly, especially as it's getting dark. This is a thick area. I don't want to affect her hunting. And we're going to hope that she makes a kill and we'll be out at the crack of dawn tracking. Sorry guys, I just got to be on the game drive radio for a second. FM, we're now just to the north of the drainage line in front of Vuyatela. So, what an incredible day it's been so far. We had Karula and Shadow together having a little territorial dispute in the morning. We saw the first baby wildebeest. We even saw it got bumped by a buffalo. Isn't that amazing? And beat the pond hippo being chased by an elephant. All in the day's work out here in the bush. But it's been great having you guys with us. And we're going to stay with Karula for the last 2 minutes in case she Johnny, she's moving. She just crept forward. In case she explodes. I can't see anything, but whatever it could be, very close. It's too dark. I can still just make her out. A little bit to the left, John. There she is. She just sort of moved again slightly. Just an inch, almost like she's crawling. Oh, picking up her head. She's listening now. Whatever she was probably stalking looks like it's moved a little bit further away. So it's important to watch that body language. It tells you what's going on. So there she goes forward again. So we're just going to sit very quietly. Oh, I wonder what's there. I think we're going to extend by a minute or two, just in case she makes her charge. In case she makes that charge now. Sorry guys, just got to be on the game drive. Hey, firm, just come down on that shortcut to Gallagher Waterhole. Just stand by. She is showing interest in something, so all my lights are off. But you should get us very on. And there's that tiny little road that goes to the waterfowl hole in front of Gallagher off that road. She's moving inch by inch. So we're going to extend for a little bit, just in case she makes that charge in the next minute or two. I can't see or hear what she's talking, but judging from her behavior, it's quite close. Unfortunately, it is getting quite dark. I think I can just make her out. She almost looks like she's in that burst position, about to sort of explode. So we can just make her out. There's not going to be... Oh no, it looks like she just gave up. Oh no, it's right in front of me. There's a scrub hare, 30 centimeters or less than 1.5 meters from the front of the vehicle. So she's actually stalking straight towards the car. There's a little rabbit right next to me, right in front of me. Oh. So the scrub hare has been hopping along this game path towards us. So the hare's gone still, Karula's gone still. Oh, isn't that incredible? You can just make out her eyes off the light that is made so you can see me. That is a bit scary looking, isn't it? So she's watching this hare. There's probably 7 meters between her. Oh, she's coming. The hare's keeping still. She's just come forward about 1 meter or 2. It's down to about 9 meters between her and the hare. Oh, this is so exciting. It's almost incredible how silently both these animals can move through the bush. She's gone still again. Look at those eyes. She's staring directly at the hare. I mean, there's quite a good chance she might grab the scrub hare. It's, 8-9 meters. Scrub hares do have that incredible hearing. It's not looking in her direction, it's facing away from her. But she is being very cautious with this stalk. Hey, firm, keep coming, sort of heading towards Gallagher Camp. You should see us just to the west of the large termite mound with the jackalberry. She's busy stalking a scrub hare. We've killed Light. She was about 8 meters from it. Lost decent visual. Sorry, she's gone still again. I can't really see the hare as it gets darker. I know more or less where it is. Can just make out some of it. Oh, a branch just fell out of the knobthorn tree. The hare is still there. This is one of those moments that I talk about where patience is key. And we can barely see what's going on, but still it's just so exciting. We literally cannot move. The hare is 1.5 meters off the front of the bonnet, and Karula is about 8 meters from the hare. I can just make out the hare. I can just make out the hare. We've still got those peering eyes. I know it's a leopard, but it does sort of remind me of that wonderful poem. Just change the tiger part, or to leopard burning bright in the forests of the night. That's incredible. Oh, she just blinked. Isn't that amazing? So just that little bit of light that we use so you can see us in the vehicles, it's not affecting the other things around. Oops. Button. Sorry, I just need to use the camera again. Yeah, Tax, sorry. We've got Karula. Just in front of WildEarth camp. Oh, the hare's run away. She's coming. The hare's literally now 1 meter from my arm. She's running right next to the car. Look at that. She's still after the hare. The hare's right behind us. We're just going to have to sit and listen now. Tax, we've got Karula in front of WildEarth. Marking. I affirm you should see this big jackalberry and a termite mound. We're right there. She's just given up the stalk. The hare ran into the drainage line. So I'm going to turn all my lights now. You should get my position. So wasn't that absolutely exciting? And unfortunately for the queen, she didn't get any luck there. But we're definitely going to be checking this area with a fine-tooth comb for the morning. But from myself and from Jamie, thanks for joining us, and have fun with Scott and James. And it is a very sad day today. We're saying goodbye to Tara for a short time, and we're all going to miss her and hope she comes back very, very soon.